When a new commander gets released in Rise of Kingdoms, you generally assume that they're going to be best paired with other new commanders. So when Gorgo got released, I was really hyped to test her with Hera and with, Flavius and other commanders that we know to be meta. But weirdly, she seems to be performing the best with older commanders. She's doing well with Charles Martel. She's doing shockingly well with Constantine. So this video is dedicated to the Gorgo garrison, and we're going to explore why it is that Constantine with Gorgo is actually working really well. So stick around in this video for the strange things we've learned about the Gorgo meta, and you may be excited to hear that old commanders have some fresh life. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And I love when game design releases new commanders that makes old commanders exciting and relevant again. In fact, I think it is way more exciting for the game when new commanders drop and they're paired with older commanders, bringing sort of fresh life to your older investments, rather than just like the sort of boring pathway of like, yeah, you take the two new commanders, you smash them together, and you just use them for rallying and garrisoning and everything, even in the open field. And although Gorgo and Liu Chen in the open field is nutty, and we'll talk about that in a different video, I want to talk today about why the heck Constantine is performing well, and I want to show you test results of Gorgo with Constantine. So the first thing we need to do is review Constantine's kit and talk about what the heck is going on here that would make it work well with Gorgo. So first and foremost, this commander gives a 40% attack reduction to the target and makes it so you take 10% less damage. Well, wait a minute. A 40% attack reduction over here, plus, if we look at Gorgo, what's her attack reduction? When awakened, okay, and she's got less than 50% of units remaining, whenever you're hit by a normal attack, you have a 10% chance to gain a mighty shield and reduce the attack of 5 nearby enemy troops by 30%. So you're looking at a 70% attack reduction against the rally or against potentially a swarming march. So 70% reduction, I mean, you have my attention. That is a massive stat reduction specifically to attack, the damage the enemy deals. So not only are we reducing the damage the enemy deals, but would you look at this? 40% health on Constantine. That's a lot of health, man. And you pair 40% health with Constantine with another 30% health with Gorgo. Okay, so wait a minute. You're telling me that we've reduced the enemy attack by 70% and boosted our health by 70%. All right, I mean, we can start to see why this might be working. It's making you super tanky, and it's making them not able to deal as much damage. But we're not even done. The third skill here makes it so that you take 10% less damage from cavalry normal attacks. And your watchtower attack is increased by 10%. Okay, whatever. When leading the garrison of your city or a stronghold, you also get 10% attack. So we're increasing our attack by 10%, which is actually really unimpressive for a skill. Although reducing the enemy's normal attack is pretty okay. I honestly wouldn't think much of this skill, but it's just yet another skill that is doing something relevant. But we're not done. Constantine, fourth skill. This is where things get weird. When troops led by this commander have been reduced to 50% or less units remaining, they get a powerful heal. Well, I don't think much of this, although it could maybe be skewing our testing to make the results kind of look better than they, might normally. Although the thing is like, well, whatever. We could talk about that in a bit. Effects can only trigger once per hour after leaving your city, but while 50% of your units or lower remain, all incoming healing effects are decreased by 30%. That's a debuff. But the upside is that skill damage taken while a shield is active is reduced by 40%. And it's this 40% skill damage taken reduction that seems to just be really crazy. Nevsky with Justinian is just doing crazy skill damage, and this is saying, all right, well, we're just going to reduce it by 40%. Now, I need to go and look in the logs to like really understand what's going on here. My suspicion is that although this says while a shield is active, your skill damage taken is reduced by 40%, I wonder if, look, the way shields work is you get the shield, they have a duration that is technically like, for example, 3 seconds on Gorgo's Mighty Shield from her expertise skill. But they only last as long as the sort of damage that they can sustain is still there. So, like, in other words, if I have a shield for 500 factor, as soon as that 500 factor of damage is dealt, I no longer have a shield. But I wonder if this skill is counting the full 3 seconds as the sort of duration in which your skill damage taken is reduced. I don't know. I would need to definitely look in the logs to really understand this. But Constantine's not done yet. We're not done yet, okay? 15% attack and 5% defense for all troop types. I mean, it ain't much, but we also still are not done yet. There's even more stats. If we go in here and we look at the museum buff for Constantine, and by the way, this is what I think museum buffs should do. They should make old commanders good enough to be super relevant and a viable choice, but not OP. And here it is, another 20% attack and 5% normal attack damage. So we're looking at 10% attack on the third skill, 15% attack on the expertise, and 20% attack over here. So we're looking at a grand total of what? 45% boosted attack while reducing the enemy's attack by 70%. Oh, and by the way, normal attack damage on Gorgo is really crazy because she does smite damage. Smite damage is like skill damage, but it's boosted by normal attack. So this is kind of like 5% all damage in the context of the Gorgo with Constantine combo. Okay, so if you're following along with me so far, we've gained a ton of tanky stats, 70% health. We've gained a ton of attack, and we've gained skill damage mitigation, and we've reduced the enemy's attack, and we've reduced our all damage taken. I mean, there's a lot going on from Constantine, especially when paired with Gorgo, that is actually pretty exciting. And if we just get a quick refresher on Gorgo's skills, okay? What is she doing? She's boosting our normal attack. She's boosting our counterattack. Oh, wait a minute. She makes it so you take 20% less skill damage as well. So the combination, let me just break this down. The combination of Gorgo Constantine is 60% less skill damage taken. Oh, not to mention talents. You can get another 9% in the defense tree. So we're looking at 69% skill damage taken reduction. I mean, that is nutty. Oh, by the way, Gorgo also increases your attack by 40%. So we were stacking up all that Constantine attack. So if I remember correctly, it was 20% from the museum, 15% from the expertise. So you're at 35, plus another 10 from the garrison skill. So like 45% attack, plus another 40 over here. So 85% attack boost. Am I getting that right? All right. Plus you can increase your normal attack damage. Oh, no, wait. Increase the normal attack damage taken by the target. That's really good. Okay. Plus the health we talked about, instant proc smite damage. Whenever you deal smite damage, you get a bonus to your normal attack damage. That's big anti-swarm going on there. Because remember, normal attack damage in this game also elevates your counter-attack damage. And the attack reduction over here. So the combination of Gorgo with Constantine is like just really strangely effective. And I really think that skill damage mitigation is off the charts. Like, I think the more damage mitigation you can stack, the better. Like, I don't know for sure, but I think it might have one of those, like, exponential effects working in your favor, where, like, okay, we've got a 69% skill damage taken reduction, plus a 10% all damage taken reduction, which, by the way, makes it so that we're sitting at, what, 79% less skill damage taken, if all those things stack at the same time? And I think they can. Right? Because the all damage reduction is from the active skill of Constantine. You've got the skill damage reduction from the fourth skill of Constantine. That's a passive. That stacks with the active skill of Gorgo. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it all stacks up, man. I think it all stacks up, and that's why I think this combo's nuts. But let me show you the test results. Before these tests, we actually ran full equipment. So this is super relevant. Every time I make a video with testing, you'll get people who say, you didn't test with gear. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant because the stats that gear gives and the accessories are insanely relevant to the result. And then you get another camp of people that say, you should know better than to test with equipment. If you test with equipment, the results aren't accurate because people have different, equipment. It's not 100% exactly the same. So like, I think the equipment tests are the better tests. I'm just going to say it because I think it gets closer to the reality of the situation. And I think that no equipment tests are super valuable when what you're trying to do is figure out, hey, which combo even is going to be the best combos? Because in an Ark of Osiris practice match, you can't switch your equipment mid-match. And it just takes tons of practice matches if you're going to try to, perfectly solve it with equipment on. So all that to say, I think the equipment tests are good, and that's what we did here. So you've got Gorgo Constantine against Sargon, Tariq ibn Ziyad. I would normally run Tariq ibn Ziyad as the primary, but I have my gear on my Sargon for this practice match. It is what it is, but it was the meta gear. 256,000 sevs for me, and 178,000 for the Gorgo Constantine garrison. Now, there is one piece of this puzzle that we were talking about, which is that the garrison does this big heal, and that big heal does, I think, influence the outcome of these results. However, I still think this is a really great result. And I think it influences the outcome here more than it would in a KVK. I would say, obviously, because like someone else could just reinforce the garrison and that would be fine. So I think these results are slightly biased to be more positive than they would in a KVK context. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think that is important to understand. So we've got another attack on the obelisk here. Boudica Zhuge Liang. Now, I'm not saying this is the best rally in the world, but Boudica Zhuge Liang got shredded by Gorgo Constantine. Okay, 257,000 sevs for the Boudica Zhuge Liang to the 172,000 sevs of the Gorgo Constantine garrison. By the way, Yoda is using the Ottoman civilization, so 5% archer health, and also the 5% skill damage dealt. The next test that we ran was a meta rally. This is the Nevsky Justinian against Gorgo Constantine. 285 to 220. My goodness, man. I mean, look, Nevsky Justinian just slays everything. It slays everything, except Constantine, apparently. So Gorgo Constantine beats one of the arguably like best rallies in the game, although the Nevsky Justinian is a very swarmable rally. Like the answer to this rally is that ideally you swarm it. And if you can't, it generally punishes you unless you've got one of these new Gorgo combos. So here we go again. Nevsky Justinian, this time winning by a very narrow margin. 15,000 sev wound differential in the favor of the Gorgo Constantine. So Gorgo Constantine is looking really good. I've got more of these, however. We did it again. Look at this one. Oh my God. Nevsky Justinian versus Gorgo Constantine. 316 to 205. Bro, that's crazy. That is crazy. We also ran Charles Martel, and the Martel had a double relic, which is definitely relevant here. 151,000 to 202,000. So very much in favor of the Nevsky Justinian. The Gorgo here is a very technical play with the Charles Martel as an anti-swarm, in my opinion. It is not, in my estimation, great against, the sort of meta rallies here. And we proved that yet again, 175,000 to 206,000 with the Charles Martel as the secondary. So what is the takeaway from all this? Like, what have we learned? Well, in my previous video, which I would encourage you to go watch, and I'll have a card in the end screen in a few minutes here, we talked about how you sort of have some choices between, do you want your garrison to be more anti-swarm, or do you want your garrison to shred the rally? And we concluded that Zeno Gorgo was kind of the best balance of all worlds, where it's very high anti-swarm and your best option against a rally. But I actually think, unironically, that like the Gorgo with Constantine could potentially be as good or better against a rally. And like, okay, Constantine is a commander that you get so early in the game. Like, so early in the game. It's insane. It's actually so cool that an early game commander could work at all and with a straight face, I'd say could work in the end game. So to figure out how anti-swarm this is, we actually did swarm the garrison as well. And I will sort of share those garrison results with you, which basically like the garrison 2-for-1 on average, I think. I live streamed this, all the testing. So if you want to see that live stream, I'll have a card in the end screen and you can see the method we used to swarm. But the garrison was getting close to or around 2-for-1, which is not as good as the Gorgo Martel, by the way, as an anti-swarm garrison, and is about as good as the Xeno, I believe, what the Gorgo was. So I think that the Constantine combo actually is super legit. And I can't wait to see people using it more in KVK. I mean, the reason that I wanted to test it in ARC is because people were saying they were using it in KVK and it was working really well. And I thought, no way. Like, look, I got a ton of requests to go test Gorgo with Leonidas. And when you look at their kits, I have no understanding of why people want to see it other than like, oh, they were a power couple IRL, and that I understand. But that got absolutely destroyed. So I get like so many suggestions from players, and the overwhelming majority of them are like very respectfully like not meta, right? So whenever I do a testing video, people want to test, and understandably, they want to see the results with the commanders they have. So what I'm trying to say is that when that Constantine request came in, and people were like, trust me, bro, Constantine with Gorgo is insane. Like, I don't know, I get trust me bros all the time with different commanders that like aren't insane in reality, right? So we tested the Constantine and it's actually nutty. So thank you for suggesting that and being persistent with that suggestion. It was actually really good. Gorgo with Constantine is a thing. I would actually like to try that in this KVK. In fact, I expect it will happen in the next month or so. I've got fighting both in Kingsland on my restart in like a week or two, and then on my main account towards the sort of middle of the month. So actually in the next 3 weeks, you are going to see a ton of fireworks with the Constantine Gorgo combination. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right. And by the way, it should be Gorgo primary. I got to be really clear. Gorgo should be the primary because she has a lower rage requirement. We could theoretically try and test with the Constantine as the primary, and I'm not opposed to it. In fact, now I'm really interested in seeing if the support tree skill damage mitigation might actually be even better. So there's more to test. I feel like the rage reduction, however, over here is just mental. That's probably the play. It's probably the play. But subscribe if you haven't already to not miss out on what we learn next. And check out those cards in the end screen if you want to see the testing with Gorgo in the field and in the garrison. I've got those live streams, card in the end screen. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.